You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Good afternoon, everybody. You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network from Phoenix, Arizona. I'm your host, Matt Holloway. It's been a busy weekend here in the Valley of the Sun. Yesterday, we had a rally in the park, MAGA in the park, actually, which was put on by several patriot groups, attended by such luminaries as former Sheriff of Maricopa County Joe Arpaio, Senate candidate Dr. Kelly Ward, among others there, such as Kelly Townsend, I believe, was present. And then, today, progressives struck back. And Mr. Bernie Sanders, that's right, our old Bernie Bro in Chief, Senator Bernie Sanders, decided to hold a show of his own at the Mesa Amphitheater with Raul Grijalva, among others. I listened to it, so you don't have to. We're going to start with that now on the HoloNet Podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. Stick around.
You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now.
I will build a great, great wall on our southern border, and I will have Mexico pay for that wall. Mark my words.
The American people are frustrated because their elected officials don't listen. Some are home on the campaign trail. We say we listen. And yet something about this Senate floor, something about Washington, D.C., I don't know if it's the water, something in the air, the cherry blossoms, but people get here and they stop listening to the American people.
What we witnessed here today in the Security Council is an insult. It won't be forgotten. It's one more example of the United Nations doing more harm than good in addressing the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
My duty, and the sacred duty of every elected official in this chamber, is to defend Americans, to protect their safety, their families, their communities, and their right to the American dream. Because Americans are dreamers too.
I want the people of America to be able to work less for the government and more for themselves. I want them to have the rewards of their own industry. This is the chief meaning of freedom. Until we can reestablish a condition under which the earnings of the people can be kept by the people, we are bound to suffer a very severe and distinct curtailment of our liberty.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Arizona. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Senators, members of Congress, Mr. Speaker, and Mr. President. You had one damn job. Seriously.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
Oh, dear God in heaven, you bet your sweet Aspercream, not a sponsor, but that's right, you're listening to the HoloNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network, coming to you from beautiful western Phoenix, Arizona. Here we hold the line against the night, and at lanterns.buzz, we are here to fix the machine. You can find what we're doing on theholonet.com. Follow us on Twitter at theholonet, facebook.com/holonet. We are streaming live on Facebook right now, just the way I like to. Got a couple of people watching. How we doing, Ted, Jimmy? Glad you can join me. Anybody else? Make sure you like, share, spread like the plague that we all know that constitutional conservative thought is to those of a progressive persuasion. I'm a little bit wound up today. I'm a little bit pissed. Here's why. Because Bernie bro, how dare he saunter his poorly coiffed 70-something-year-old behind into my fine desert abode and taint it with the message of progressivism. Now, before we get into this, I did want to say there were a couple of people who deigned to interrupt the Raul Grijalva and Bernie Sanders brotherly special. I don't recommend this, and here's why. Progressives and Antifa types and all those hacks love to jump into conservative constitutional patriotic events and disrupt, decry, and basically make arses of themselves. We, however, are better than that. We are better than that, and damn it, you know we're better than that. So let them have their fun, pick it outside, yell, chant, scream all you want, but disrupting events like this doesn't do them any favors. The stupidity of their own remarks, the absolute absurdity of their views, speak more volumes than somebody standing at the back of the room mid-Grijalva's speech yelling, MAGA, can possibly say. Let Raul have his 5 minutes of fame in front of the cameras. The next 5 minutes of fame will hopefully see his sorry tail getting arrested again for public disorderly. Oh, that's a picture I can never get out of my mind. That sweet image of his semi-corpulent 60-something-year-old behind getting shoved into the back of a paddy wagon because he couldn't obey simple police requirements for a protest. Yeah, that's gotta suck. So, without any further ado, we're going to start diving on in headlong, head first, brace yourselves, this is gonna get ugly, into Bernie Sanders' Arizona Odyssey. So, I watched this so you wouldn't have to. Was on the line with a good friend of mine, Steve, earlier today. Steve, what are you at, buddy? And I told him that this was some straight-on, full-out, cerebral hemorrhage-inducing crap to listen to. I really tried to get all the way through Raul Grijalva's remarks, but you know, I was slamming my face so forcefully into the kitchen table, I think I might have disrupted my son Jack from eating his lunch. So I felt that wasn't a good look. He shouldn't see his father's self-inducing blunt force head trauma. So, yeah. I did call out a couple of fun things from this Bernie bro bash. And there's a Facebook video up there on Bernie Sanders' Facebook page if you want to watch the whole hour and 4 minute long god-awful tirade. But there's a couple of points here, and I apologize. I give some of these in the negative timestamps because it's a little easier to read on the Facebook. So, first timestamp is positive numbers, though, so I apologize. 30 minutes, 15 seconds in, Bernie talks about a woman he met at the hotel. And, you know, this is just so annoying. I think I'm going to actually pull it. I'm going to pull it real quick, and we're going to get right to it. 30 minutes and 15 seconds into this spiel, he tells us the story of somebody he met working for the hotel who waited 7 hours in line to vote. Check.
Say a word about somebody whose name you probably don't know. Her name is Patty Castro. And Patty works in a hotel here in Phoenix, and I just happened to bump into her last night. And she said that during the 2016 presidential primary election, she waited online for 7 hours in order to vote. 7 hours. And I say to the Arizona officials, Whether they did this stuff intentionally or not, I don't know. But what they certainly did do is a disgrace to democracy.
I don't know whether they did this intentionally or unintentionally in my best Bernie Sanders impersonation. Bernie! Baby! Brother! We have mail-in ballots in Arizona! They're mailed to you like a month ahead of time. This Arizona voting polling place issue, they moved the polling places, is the biggest pile of horse I have ever heard in my life. We have almost a 100% mail-in ballot system here. It costs you nothing to register to vote. They'll send a ballot to your house or wherever you live, your apartment complex. Hell, they can even send it to the homeless shelter you're staying at if you're not in a home. And you can vote! You vote! There's no voter suppression in the state of Arizona, you hack! It's the easiest state to vote in I've ever been in my life. I grew up in New Jersey. The first time I had to vote for President of the United States, I had to do a provisional ballot. Why? Because there were too many friggin' dead people on the ballot for them to find my real live 18-year-old name. Getting my grandparents off of that voter roll, may they rest in peace, required damn near an act of Congress. And Bernie's got nerve to throw shade onto the Maricopa County Board of Elections. You know, I'm sorry. I got a little annoyed at them last year because they screwed up about sending out some pre-election stuff. They made mistakes. They made mistakes. So, calm down. And in Arizona, we voted out Maricopa County Recorder Helen Purcell, because of the mistakes that were made and how poorly it was all handled. But in a state where it is this easy to vote by mail, if you had to wait in line 7 hours to cast your ballot, that's on you, boo-boo. Sorry. You know, I missed the mail-in deadline too. So that means I have to take the ballot that they mailed me. I have to saunter my butt over to Luke Air Force Base School, over there on Dysart, and I drop it in the box. It ain't that hard. Get off it. Hey. Next couple of things on Bernie's tirade. I want to get through with this before the segment's up. Negative 3111, he refers to Arizona repeatedly as a purple state. The only thing purple might be what you're smoking, Bernie. Maricopa County has been hardcore red for decades. If you were delivering this speech in Tucson, you might have a point, but anybody with an ounce of electoral wit will tell you that Arizona consists of Maricopa County and everybody else, and that's how politics in this state's work, baby. It's a little bit like Chicago and Illinois. However Chicago votes, however Cook County goes, so goeth Illinois. The difference is, Maricopa County is about a third of the state, maybe not a third, about a fifth of the state. And the vast majority of its population. Oh my God, this guy is a... How do you research this badly? I realize you're the senator from Vermont, but did you take 5 minutes to learn about the other 49 states when you decided to run for president of the United? Jesus. Negative 2945 blames the Koch brothers. Of course, you knew this was going to come out. There were 5 or 6 just bold-faced examples of class warfare. God, you gotta get those underprivileged folks charged up and hating the rich, man. It's the only way you're ever gonna beat a president who is reviving the economy. And don't worry, President Trump is not immune from my tirade today either. I'll get to that in a minute. Negative 2855 says we need to overturn Citizens United, because surely corporations, which are groups of people which are protected under the right of freedom of assembly, which is in the Bill of Rights, just to let you guys know, it's kind of important. It's one of the first. Yeah, that's not important at all, being able to decide what to do with your money collectively as a corporation being a group of people called shareholders who vote to decide what to do with their money. That's not important at all. Anyway, and at the 28-minute mark, my personal favorite, wages are too damn low. I actually got the cut from this because I couldn't believe that he said it. I think Jimmy McMillan needs to reach out. He might have a gripe. Listen to this.
2 or 3 jobs just to pay the bills because the wages they earn are just too damn low.
And if you remember back to 2013, Jimmy McMillan of the Rent Too Damn High party in New York State.
Rent too damn high is my thing. Jimmy McMillan is my name. Vote for the Rent Too Damn High party and Jimmy McMillan November 2nd.
I disagree with his whole platform, but damn, that's catchy.
Rent too damn high is my thing. Jimmy McMillan is my name. Vote for Jimmy McMillan and the Rent Too Damn High party November 2.
Y'all better tell about me.
Rent is too damn high. Ain't nothing to talk about. Ain't nothing else to talk about.
Y'all better tell about me.
Rent is too damn high. Ain't nothing to talk about. Ain't nothing else to talk about.
Well, hey, let's look on the bright side. Raul Grijalva is probably still going to get elected to Congress. You know, that District 1 crew in Arizona, they always seem to hang on no matter what. But for the 2020 campaign, hell, we might be looking at Bernie McMillan 2020. Wouldn't that be something? I mean, they seem to line up, don't they? And how great would that be to have a dyed-in-the-wood, avowed socialist, along with a former member of the Black Panther Party vying for the White House. I'm Matt Holloway. You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. We'll take a quick break, go get a tissue for the nosebleed. It's going to get worse from here. We'll be back.
My fellow citizens, recent events have imposed upon the patriotic people of this country a responsibility and a duty greater than that of any since the Civil War.
It is the common people of the world that are interested in this business. They know when we have war, it is they that have to bear the burden. It's their sisters and mothers and daughters that have to wait, trembling, to hear the news.
We are called as a people to give testimony in the sight of the world to our faith that the future shall belong to the free. Since this century's beginning, a time of tempest has seemed to come upon the continents of the earth.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice. And let me remind you also that moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue.
I want the people of America to be able to work less for the government and more for themselves. I want them to have the rewards of their own industry. This is the chief meaning of freedom. Until we can reestablish a condition under which the earnings of the people can be kept by the people, we are bound to suffer a very severe and distinct curtailment of our liberty.
You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
That is indeed correct, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Lanterns Media Network proudly brings to you the HoloNet podcast, live from Phoenix, Arizona. And I told you before the break that President Trump was not going to be immune from today's rant, and no, he shan't be, because of this lovely little vignette recorded at his rally in Pennsylvania.
You ever see the story where it's 1999, I'm on Meet the Press, a show now headed by Sleepy Eyes Chuck Todd. He's a sleeping son of a bitch, I'll tell you.
Holy shit, dude.
Seriously. That is the President of the United States of America. One more time.
You ever see the story where it's 1999, I'm on Meet the Press, a show now headed by Sleepy Eyes Chuck Todd. He's a sleeping son of a bitch, I'll tell you.
I don't care how much you don't like Chuck Todd. Chuck Todd is a schmuck in my view. You can't, as President of the United States, get on national television, nay, international television, and call a newscaster a son of a... You can't do that, dude. Come on. You're not making this any easier for us. You're doing good things. And then you don't just, put your foot in your mouth. You put both feet and you somehow manage to form some sort of a Mobius inversion where you're standing inside your own mouth with both feet while giving people the finger. I don't get it. I don't get it. It's like 3 steps forward, 5 steps back. What? Dude! Shut up! Anyway, for proper context, we'll continue.
And they showed it this morning, 1999, and I'm talking about North Korea. You got to take them out now. And then they have Clinton saying, we are pleased to announce that we have made a deal with North Korea. Well, you know how that deal turned out, right? We gave billions and billions of dollars and lots of other things.
Here's what kills me about this, okay? He was objectively right. The president was objectively correct here. But nobody's going to care about that. Nobody's going to listen to that now because he started out by calling Chuck Todd from CNN an SOB. That's all anybody's going to carry. They're not going to start out that he was completely bold-faced, dead nuts on accurate. No. It's going to be President Trump once again defamed the media and violated the freedom of the press by calling the venerable Chuck Todd a son of a... And that's what the takeaway is going to be. It's no matter how right you are, if you present it in a wrong way, in a way that your foes, that your opponents can take advantage of, they're going to. And they're going to undercut you with it. They're going to cut your legs right out from under you. It's astonishing how you can be so right and so wrong in the same soundbite. How you can deliver something that should be a great victory for yourself, but deliver it so badly that it crushes any meaning. And it's frustrating. Oh, God, is it frustrating. I mean, I didn't start out as a Trump supporter. I didn't. I was a Ted Cruz supporter. Big one. I said President Trump was going to be a nightmare. I didn't think it was going to work out well. I didn't think it was going to do half the things they said it was going to do. He's proved me wrong in a lot of respects, and I'm glad to be proven wrong. But then it's good thing, bad thing. Very, very good thing. Completely overshadowed by incredibly stupid bad thing. Every damn time. And I just wish wholeheartedly that history will remember him as one of our greatest presidents who accomplished some of the most good. And I'll tell you what absolutely terrifies the left. There are two things. Number one, there have been rumblings, and some of this comes from Breitbart, so question your sources always. Question with boldness the very existence of God, for God would rather honest questions than, blindfolded fear. But apparently, there have been a lot of real quiet rumblings in the White House about an impending Israel-Palestine solution. And that just absolutely terrifies the left. And the progressive left and Europe and the UN type. It scares everybody to death. Why? Because if President Trump succeeds in 1 year or 2 years or one presidential term, 4 years, if he succeeds in bringing some sort of meaningful peace to Palestine and to Israel, I'll say the PLO because I don't recognize Palestine as an actual place. If he is able to bring peace to those groups, even if it's an imperfect peace, he will have accomplished more in one presidential term than anyone else has in the last century in Israel. He will go down in history as one of the greatest presidents, one of the greatest world leaders of all time. Without question. And that terrifies them. That's a legacy that will make the American people 100 years from now go, Barack who? Oh, that president before Trump. That guy? Oh, him. Said in the same breath as William Henry Harrison, I died in 30 days. It will not only... President Trump won't only be the president who reversed President Obama's legacy, he will have eclipsed it. And this piece scares them even further. Probably the biggest piece of news to come out of last week, the upcoming Trump-Kim summit. President Trump set to meet with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. And President Trump, according to USA Today, President Trump shocked the world, accepting North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's invitation to discuss a nuclear-free Korean peninsula. It's historic and it's high stakes. And the world is watching. Could you imagine, and I don't want to jinx this one, could you imagine if President Trump actually came to a peaceful arrangement with North Korea, if the path was paved, if not for Korean reunification, but for at least demilitarization and coexistence? If the DMZ could be opened and free trade and commerce flow back and forth between the North and South, outside of the specter in the shape of a mushroom cloud, could you imagine that? The Democratic Party in this country does not want that to happen. They are terrified of it. Because again, this one act would cement President Trump's legacy for all time. He wouldn't need a second term. But damn if he wouldn't get it. That's a showstopper move. Bust out the Mortal Kombat. Finish him. It's over, man. If you have a president who has a path to peace in North Korea and what some are calling a credible plan for Israel, judging from the repeated meetings with Benjamin Netanyahu, this is decidedly a possibility? Oh, man. That's why Bernie Sanders is on the stump at the Mesa Amphitheater here in Arizona. Bernie's starting 2020 early. Because the Democrats are terrified. And they know the only way they can counter the populist wave that put President Trump into office is to undo their mistake of 2016 and double down behind the burn. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, get into a little bit of news coming up this week here, and we're going to take a short walk back through Twitter, and I may have another opportunity to use my South Park soundbite. You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. I'm your host, Matt Holloway. Follow us. We're on Facebook Live, facebook.com/HoloNet. Twitter, @TheHoloNet. Join the conversation. We're going to be here for the next 30 minutes. Stick around. Hey everyone, this is Matt Holloway, and I hope you're enjoying our podcast so far. It's been exciting putting this together for you, and I'm looking forward to many more to come. I did want to let you know that in setting up the HoloNet and getting everything launched here, we've gone ahead and set up a page on Patreon.com. Now, if you haven't heard of Patreon, Patreon is a website that's similar to other crowdfunding sources that allows you to support on a month-to-month basis those sources, those artists, and those groups that you really care about and that you're passionate about. And I hope that we can ignite passion in a lot of people to become more involved in the political process, and also to become involved in the conversation and to keep that political dialogue alive. So I'd like to humbly ask you today to consider becoming a patron of the HoloNet on Patreon.com, and you can access that at Patreon.com/TheHoloNet. We have various levels of patronage. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month, which unlocks exclusive content for the Patreon community, such as a feed of patron-only content. Then you have a $5 option, which gives you behind-the-scenes access to blog about the different inspirations that we have. It'll give you access to patrons-only polling. And then we have a $10 option, which gives you a signed digital poster plus everything else. $20 option, which gives you name in the credits on the site, and all other rewards. And we even have a segment sponsor package available on Patreon, which is $125 a month, which entitles you and your business to a 60-second ad as a segment sponsor during the podcast, of course, subject to content approval. So if you would like to become a patron of the HoloNet, we would be greatly thankful to you, and it's going to go toward a solid cause of generating this sort of millennial constitutional conservative content that is so lacking in our media today. So thank you for your time, for your consideration, and for being a part of the HoloNet. Here we hold the line against the night, and the millennial conservative resistance begins here.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
And we're back. You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. Wanted to go over the Twitter, hop on the Twitters, the tweets. If you haven't been paying attention to my Twitter feed, shame on you. You got to check that out because I post some fun stories. Last week, right after our show concluded, actually like several hours after, I had reposted a story from The Blaze. Study shows most Americans blame government mistakes, not guns, for the Florida mass shooting in Parkland. That was a refreshing breath of fresh air. Yes, I ran out of words, and that happens when you're live. So I had posted, thank God for small signs of sanity. Notice I only see this from The Blaze, fancy that. Because, of course, it doesn't fit the narrative, so why would the mainstream media carry that story? Doesn't make any sense. Now, one thing we definitely do have to address is just yesterday there was a horrific shooting, and the New York Times covered this story. It was at the Yountville, I hope I'm pronouncing that correct, the Yountville Veterans Home, located in Northern California. 3 women and the gunman who took them hostage, unfortunately, were killed. 4 people were found shortly before 6 p.m. local time inside a room at the Veterans Home of California in Yountville, where hostages were taken, and it ended tragically. In a statement, Napa County authorities identified the gunman. We're not going to make that sick individual famous. It's from Sacramento. Said he was an Army veteran who'd served in Afghanistan, and he had been associated with the treatment program there at the home before. So I would say that we need to think deeply and send out our thoughts and prayers to the Yountville community around the Veterans Home and the families of those lives that were lost, those 3 women. Horrible things to hear about. But this should throw much-needed light onto a bigger problem in our nation, and that is the problem with mental health. And furthermore, the problem with the lack of good care through the VA for our veterans. This is going to be used by many as yet another brick to lay, yet another bit of wood for the fire for the anti-gun lobby. But this isn't what this is about. This is about veterans' care. This is about mental health. And this is a trained soldier. He could take a hostage with a pocket knife this big if he wanted to. It's not about the gun. It's about the illness in the head and the heart. So don't take this and bend it to your will. Terrible tragedy. And the bigger tragedy is what we don't do for our veterans in this country, is we don't care for them well enough. We don't give them enough support. And I've yet to see the comprehensive solution to the VA problem from the Trump administration that I've hoped for. And I hope to see it in this first term of the presidency. As if we don't, we're going to see more shootings like this, more stabbings, more suicides. The suicide rate among veterans is insane. Instead, we're getting hung up on attempts to take down the Second Amendment. Tell that to a soldier who can't sleep well at night if he doesn't have a weapon near him because he doesn't feel safe anywhere. Anyway, I want to make sure we address that before anybody, dares accuse me of talking about gun control when I didn't talk about the shooting in California. Yeah, because the two aren't connected, jackhole. People kill me. So the biggest news we've missed this weekend, President Trump seemingly starting up his re-election campaign in Pennsylvania. Elizabeth Warren saying she isn't running for president, but absolutely refusing to take a $99 cheek swab, spit in a tube test to prove her Native American heritage. Justice Department is moving to make bump stock sales illegal. And really, that's about it. That's about everything as far as the big news is concerned over the weekend. What we have to dive into is one of those facepalm moments during the week. And go to Breitbart. You can also go to JPost. That's where Glenn Beck saw it and where he tweeted it and where I had my subsequent hard stop of my brain when I read it. So, Vladimir Putin suggests that here's the headline from J-Post. Putin, Jews might have been behind U.S. election interference.
Holy shit, dude.
Yeah. Again, Jews, as in Jewish people, the guys who wear yarmulkes, okay, might have been behind U.S. election interference. Vladimir Putin, with the history that Russia has with Jewish pogroms, actually said this. Here's the full quote. Okay. In an interview with NBC News broadcast on Friday, Putin said he, quote, could not care less about indictments issued by U.S. Special Counsel Robert Mueller accusing Russian nationals and companies of election interference, stating that they, quote, they do not represent the interests of the Russian state and are unrelated to the Kremlin. He went on to say, quote, maybe they're not even Russians. Maybe they're Ukrainians, Tatars, I think that is, Jews, just with Russian citizenship. Even that needs to be checked. So the insinuation that President Putin is making here is that Jews with Russian citizenship are not Russians. Really, dude? Really? I grew up with some folk back east who would vehemently disagree. Who, despite the fact that their families came over here 2 generations ago, are more Russian than you will ever be in your life. Just Jews with Russian citizenship. Man. So, members of the Knesset in Israel, Ksenia Svetlova and Dr. Nachman Shai of the Zionist Union, have called on the Israeli government to condemn the remarks by President Putin, saying, maybe the Jews interfered in the American elections, maybe the Jews control the world, maybe Jews slaughtered the Jews in Poland. For all those allegations, there is one word, Jew hatred, said Svetlova. I expect the Israeli government to come out strongly against these serious remarks made by the Russian president. If Israel won't defend the Jews, nobody will do so in its place. Shai went on to say, this is the worst form of anti-Semitism. Putin's comments, demonstrate that nothing has changed in the perception of Jews as those responsible for, quote, the world's evil. A strong response is required from the Israeli government. I would expect Jewish organizations to join and condemn these serious remarks. They also carry responsibility for the fate of the Jewish people, whoever and wherever they are. So that's kind of the big news this week. President Trump, calls a member of the press an SOB. President Putin says it wasn't us. It might have been them Jews. Bernie Sanders is campaigning in Arizona and seems to be ripping off lines from Rent Too Damn High Party candidate in the 2013 New York gubernatorial election, Jimmy McMillan. Following that, I made a tweet here that's gotten a little bit of traction. And I said, a bit flippantly I'll add, following the left's call for common sense gun laws to change purchase age to 21, we need to update the voting rights, enlistment age, alcohol, gambling, and tobacco ages to 21 as well. Since we've established that 18-year-olds are children and are too irresponsible to own a weapon. Cheers. Since we're doing the whole insane troll logic thing this week, it reaches a certain point where, along the lines of this show's title, you just gotta sit down, and I do this weekly. I just sit down and I go, oh God, where do I start? What are the craziest things that I could talk about this week? What are the nuttiest stories that people are barely going to believe happened, but are indefatigably not fake news because they're coming from trusted sources or primary source material, so it's irrefutable? You know, and every week, there's water in that well. It's a cup that never runs dry. And it's not getting better, it's getting worse. I mean, I might need to make a longer show for all the crap that we have to slog through that 10 years ago you wouldn't have conceived would actually be taking place in this country. President just hauling off and calling a member of the press an SOB. I mean, most people, I think, spat out their drink when they heard that one. And whatever you think of Chuck Todd, if you like him or not, it's just not what you're used to hearing the president say. And could this just indicate a new frankness out of the Oval Office? A kind of dropping of pretense? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I hope that in our culture, we are better remembered for what we do rather than what we say. But in a world where half the country is convinced that speech is a violent act, if what you're saying doesn't jive with their own mind canon, then we live in a very, very dark time indeed. When people are going to rush to call this hate speech, when censorship is everywhere, where do you start? What do you talk about to get people's attention and show them the hypocrisy of it all, on the left and the right? What do you do? I was listening to Bernie Sanders earlier today, listening to that speech, and Bernie goes into this 10-minute tirade about how President Trump has reduced taxes for the super rich and for the billionaires. No, he reduced taxes for everybody, dipstick. But I digress. And he's pointing to the fact that now the Republicans are going to come after Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security. Yes. Yes. Because that's what you have to do to reduce spending. You cut taxes, you reduce spending, you shrink the size of government. So you're getting on conservatives for being conservative. And you're not saying just that you disagree with them. You're saying they're evil. Conservatives aren't evil. I don't think most liberals are evil. Most. I don't think most progressives are really evil. There are a couple that are. I think many of them do evil things because they either don't know better or because their perspective and point of view have been warped. I don't know. But at what point do you just point to both sides and go, enough? And as I said, sometimes you just gotta ask, dear God, where do I start? So things to look for, things that are coming up strong. We need to keep our eye on this evolving situation with North Korea, because this could be the biggest news story of our time, would be if President Trump is actually able to get the job done with Kim Jong-un. If he could make that progress and come away with even a small win on North Korea, then everything else about his presidency will have been worth it. The same applies to Israel. We need to continue to pay earnest attention to even the smallest overtures that the White House is making toward Benjamin Netanyahu and toward the PLO, because these could be greatly impactful. The moving of the American embassy is a seismic shock, and it's just the seismic shock that was needed to get both sides to the table. So it was a good move. And if we watch this administration, we watch this president, not for what he says, but for what he does, then even I have to agree. President Trump may be exactly what this country needed. He may very well be gaslighting America, as I alluded to in an article you can find on theholonet.com. And it may be exactly what this country needed. Because as divided as this country is, as willing as we are to accept hypocrisy as long as it aligns with our ideology, as deeply embedded into doublethink as we are, where we can accept two completely contradictory ideas because our side tells us to. Gaslighting is the process by which you make someone question their sanity. It's a manipulation tactic. And I think the American people as a whole desperately need to question our sanity, because we've listened to this for so long. We've known what the play was and who the players were, and we keep going back to the trough every 4 years, every 2 years for some elections, over and over again. And the very definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. So is President Donald Trump gaslighting America? Yes. Yes, he is. Is that necessarily a bad thing? I'm starting to think not. So if you want to check that out, I'll provide that link on the Holonet. That's one of my really, really early stories on the Holonet. Yeah, I'll post that for you. So yes, President Trump is gaslighting America. And yeah, I think we need to be gaslit. Because we have quite clearly lost our minds a long time ago. And it's going to take a shock like President Trump to force us back to some sanity. All right, folks, that's going to bring it to a close here. You're listening to the Holonet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. It's been fun. Keep your eyes open. You were given 2 ears, 2 eyes, and 1 mouth for a reason. As you should watch and listen twice as much as you talk. Again, you can follow us on Twitter at The Holonet, Facebook.com/Holonet, www.theholonet.com, holonet.lanterns.buzz. And now I'll cap it off as I always do. From Phoenix, good night. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America.